I remember the first deer I shot was that year. It was after opening weekend. And I was really upset or disappointed that I hadn't gotten a deer all weekend. And I had heard all these stories about deer. And my mother made me watch Bambi before I went out deer hunting, just so I knew what I was getting into. And I think she was trying to make it so I didn't want to go hunting. But I went hunting and I really wanted to get Bambi, and I did. So the Monday after opening weekend, I went to a blind called the stilt blind, and I went hunting with my father, and it's cold and it's windy because you're like 15, 20 feet up in the air. So my dad let me lie down in the bottom of the stilt blind and take a nap. So I did that, and then I got woken up, and my father said, "Brooke, there's a deer, there's a deer down, and there's a big hillside that the stilt blind looks over." So about 150 yards down the hill, there was a deer. So I slowly got up and I aimed my gun, and he said, "Okay, now squeeze the trigger." So I squeezed the trigger and I shot it right through the heart, and that was the first deer I shot and killed. And it was Bambi. It didn't have spots, but it was really tiny. It looks like a dog, and I'm probably 90 pounds. So it was a small deer, but it was my first one. And I really didn't want to go. It was 5 in the morning, and I'm tired, and I had already deer hunted, and it was the last day of opening weekend, of deer hunting season. It was the last day of deer hunting season, and I would just, you just want to sleep at that age. So he dragged us out, and out popped this huge buck. And I just saw a huge deer. And I slowly got my gun up, and I shot it. And that was the second deer I shot, was an 11-point buck. And dressed and weighed, which means you have to take the guts out, and then you weigh it. Because some people weigh it with the guts in, which is cheating. But with the guts out, it weighed, I think, 205 pounds. It was a really big deer. It was really heavy. And it's odd because ever since then, I was labeled a trophy buck hunter, which gives you some leeway to not have to kill a deer from season to season. You can see a lot of deer and not shoot it and say, well, I passed it up. I'm waiting for the big one. So it lets you do that, but the pressure's off, but at the same time, it was a big deer. It was a big deer. A funny thing is that I'm allergic to deer. And yet I go hunting every year. So every time I go up there, if I forget my allergy medicine, it's just, Claritin or Benadryl. It used to be Benadryl, but I don't take that anymore. But I would break out, or I would get really congested. My itchy eyes. I always have itchy eyes with my allergies. So it's just kind of funny that I do this thing, but I'm actually really allergic to them. I don't know if I've ever had a bed at deer camp. I think the first year I ended up sleeping on a stool underneath a coat rack. I don't know why. There were a lot of people up there that year, though. So there are a lot of men sleeping in the beds. My father sleeps in his room, and there's a big bed in there that my mother and father can share when she comes up. And my uncle sleeps in the other room, which is on the other side. And then all the men usually sleep up in the loft area. And I find somewhere to sleep. I might have slept down in the basement on my old bunk bed as a child, but it's not a standard bunk bed. It's these horrible springs that hold the bed together, and I don't really know if people could actually sleep on that ever after I was a child, but for whatever reason they ended up at the cabin. Most things that my mother doesn't want in the house end up at the cabin. So the bunk beds were just one of those things. But I guess I would kind of sleep wherever, usually on the floor. Sometimes when I was little, and there were other kids up there, we would all sleep on the floor. But I stopped going to the cabin for that period of time after that. And when I came back, I, for whatever reason, started sleeping on the couch. And the couch is where I sleep. And that's my spot. So it's kind of in the middle, separated from everyone else. I remember one time when I was just going up there, these boys and I were playing outside, and we were rolling around in the dirt, and I think the sand had irritated my skin, and I ran inside, and I was really upset because I had hives all over my arms. And I went up to my dad and I said, "Dad, I think there's something wrong with me. I have hives all over my arms." And he didn't really even look at my arm. But this is a time when everybody was drinking up there. And he just said, "Well, you're probably fine." He's like, "You're fine. Just go away." And I remember feeling really hurt. And I realized that my dad wasn't necessarily my dad during the time. I mean, he is, but this is Daddy's time. And puffy arms is not something that Daddy takes care of at deer camp. He's having fun. And that's okay. And it got better. I still have 2 arms. It's a different beast, deer camp, now than it was when I originally went up. And the time away was good for everyone, just to kind of step back from the situation, everything. And now it's different. I think people don't drink as much. I sleep on the couch, and we just focus on the good things now. Yeah. But I don't think anyone's really thinking about it other than me. And maybe they are, maybe they aren't. They're men. But it's been brought up every now and then that certain people should come back up to deer camp. And it hurts. It hurts to think that they're not thinking about it. They're not thinking about me and my feelings. It's hard. But I'll still keep going up. I'll still keep serving myself every time I go up there and having a good time. And yeah, this is what I do.